Hi, we're going to do our rhetorical analysis presentation for Writing 111. My name is Minette Sturby. I'm a freshman.
Hi, I'm Olivia Long, freshman.
I'm Victor Oza, freshman. In the article, Is Google Making Us Stupid?, Carr expresses how modern technology has caused our generation to become more distracted and scatterbrained. He argues that using the internet, we move from site to site and do not focus on one lengthy article. He also talks about how we use all these sources and somehow bring all the information together into one concrete piece in our brains. Our generation multitasks more than any previous generation, which has caused a change in how we think. Throughout the article, Nicholas Carr conveys how modern technology such as internet has weakened our generation's ability to perceive information because we are constantly getting distracted. His use of tone and diction and his application of sources demonstrate how we jump from thought and site to site, which also helps to create the informal tone which makes his argument more relatable to the audience he is trying to reach. The sources and amount of sources he chose establishes ethos, but also shows the change from deep reading long passages to skimming many passages. His research shows tiny quotations in sentences, which establishes formal tone.
Carr works many tiny quotations and parenthetical remarks into his thoughts and sentences instead of setting them apart into their own sentences. And this strengthens his argument because this technique doesn't just tell us how our thinking has changed, but it also shows us because his writing style parallels how we think. Just like how our thinking has become more scattered and we are more easily distracted, his writing style has become very scattered as well. For instance, he mentions multiple examples once and then comes back to them later, almost as if he forgot to finish his idea. And this was shown by his reference to Friedrich Nietzsche multiple times throughout the article, because Nietzsche's change from handwriting to a typewriter changed his thinking. He used this example to show us how the medium we write with and read in changes how we think, just like how computers can change how our brains work. He also mentions clocks more than once throughout the article, which produces the scattered effect. Because clocks changed how people thought because they didn't listen to their senses as much. They started to obey the clock for when to eat and when to sleep. And clocks also changed how we thought about our brains because we used to think of our brains as working like clockwork, but we moved into thinking of our brains as computers.
Throughout the piece, Carr makes many references to the media. He describes how throughout the New York Times, they used to have full articles printed, and now they created article abstracts, which are basically a shorter version of the article, so people can just skim that as opposed to reading the entire article. He also says how in magazines, they printed more pictures and more captions as opposed to printing the full article as well. Also throughout TV shows now, we have captions running across the bottom of the screen, and we have more ads popping up. This serves the purpose so that while people are watching a show, they could be reading news headlines at the bottom of their screen. So it reveals how people are constantly thinking at multiple things at once and they're not fully concentrated on one thing. Carr's writing describes how large corporations have changed the way they think. As a result, he describes how this problem is constantly arising in our society. He establishes logos throughout the many techniques that he describes. How we now are realizing techniques that we never noticed before. For example, how the way we think has changed because of technology. He describes how the large corporations have changed to fit the audience, so as a result, he has to change his writing to better fit our audience. Throughout his piece, he jumps around constantly from topic to topic. He is constantly using many sources and talking about different things at once. As a result, this says how our brains have become more scattered, and it targets an audience of our generation whose brains have changed the way that we think. In our society now, people want information as quickly and as easy as possible, so he uses his scattered writing style to show this. His piece is actually a lot shorter than other pieces, but yet it contains a lot of sophisticated information. He uses diction, such as malleable and staccato, which are references to other subjects, but Carr uses them to relate to his writing. He says that our brains could be considered malleable, which is a reference to metal, and he says that his writing style could be considered staccato, which is a reference to music. This reveals how while he's writing his piece, he as well is thinking as many other things at once that are not related to his piece. Throughout the essay, he makes many references to his friends' personal experiences as well as his own personal experiences. This helps to show how technology has changed and how his friends have adapted their way of thinking to fit this technology. He speaks with a first-person point of view throughout his piece, which helps the reader relate to him more, and it makes him sound more appealing to his audience. Throughout the use of personal anecdotes, he's able to establish pathos, which makes him more relatable as well.
His ethos is enhanced by his use of anecdotes and first-person point of view. He shows that he's a writer and his friends are the literary type, which shows that his expertise in the subject. His variety of sources show that he's done his research and that his use of the internet is showing jumping from site to site. His skillful use of pathos, anecdotes, and diction lead us to the informal tone, showing that his argument is less forced. As for the challenges that we faced, he jumps around from source to source, which makes it hard to follow. He repeats sources, which makes it redundant, which also makes it hard to follow. In conclusion, Carr's use of all of these techniques and references make his argument extremely persuasive, and he is not only telling us of the change in thinking, but he's also showing it to us in his change in writing style. He makes his writing relatable to his audience through his use of anecdotes, and it also shows that he references a movie instead of a lengthy book because his audience is less likely to pick up the lengthy book. The article, Is Google Making Us Stupid by Nicholas Carr, can be relatable to future assignments because during future assignments we'll be more conscious of how we do our research. We will use lengthy, legitimate sources, and not just from Google. We'll choose to use a variety of research. We will do solid body paragraphs instead of referencing the same thing multiple times, which will show scattered thinking. We will write coherently, which will also make our writing stronger. It turns our own intelligence into artificial intelligence because we are not concentrating when we're reading a full article.
Hi, I hope you enjoyed our presentation, and here are some tips on how to make your presentation just as successful. We started off our project by each reading the article separately and taking notes on it, and then coming together to condense our notes into one solid presentation.
We also worked on the articles ahead of time to avoid focusing on the whole project at one time event.
Throughout our presentation, we all worked together really well, so we each had different ideas and we brought them together and we were able to make a successful presentation as a result.